Hi, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this year's Masterclass, Decoding Cancer for the Next Decade, as part of European Week Against Cancer. My name is Antonia Mandic, and I will be your host today, listening in on some of the leading European experts and policymakers in the field. Coronavirus may have made a switch to digital conferences and masterclasses like this one, but you still have the chance to take active role today by asking questions in our chat box. So every time one of our speakers is on, you can use that time to listen and to ask questions that he or she will answer after the presentation. Također, u ime Hrvatske lige protiv raka želim pozdraviti sve naše županijske podružnice, sve pacijente I sve one koji nas evo upravo sada online prate. We're all aware that the leading cause of death in the European Union is cancer. So this masterclass today, as part of Croatian initiative in European fight against cancer, is much needed. Therefore, let us begin. Just to warm you up with a couple of words about activities and goals of Croatian League Against Cancer, here is Dr. Domagoj Eljuga, Professional Secretary of Croatian League Against Cancer. Hello, Dr. Eljuga, you ready?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Antonia, thank you very much. On behalf of Croatian League Against Cancer, our President and Executive Board, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you that will join us together at Digital Policy Masterclass that is being organized by Croatian League and its associates during European Week Against Cancer. I would like to send a warmest welcome to all panelists that have accepted our invitation to participate in this event. I'm fully aware of the fact that last 3 months were crucial for each European country in fight against COVID-19, but the future looks promising when we know that we managed to save our health system, hospitals, and to a large extent medical personnel during the first pandemic wave. We have clearly showed that when we act together, the success is granted. I'm sure that similar results can be accomplished with cancer because it is also a global threat. Unfortunately, cancer did not get scared of coronavirus. So in the following months, we will have to put even more efforts into full reactivation of hospitals and bringing back oncological patients to regular checkups, as well as activating our screening programs to a full extent. We have to work promptly, as the number of newly diagnosed cancer cases will unfortunately rise each year. So as it is estimated that in the next 25 years, Europe will face 1 million more cancer cases than it has today. Those numbers cannot leave anyone indifferent, especially when we know that cancer is to a large extent avoidable disease. So the fact that almost half of the cancer cases can be prevented puts even more importance on the activities of the Leagues Against Cancer throughout Europe. So most of our prevention activities are oriented to public health campaigns that we organize throughout the year, where we raise awareness on most common cancer sites, where we educate people on importance of early detection, and we encourage everyone to join national screening programs. So basically the words that we often use are prevention, prevention, prevention. When we know that most of the funds in fight against cancer within European Union are primarily spent on treatment, we strongly believe that less than 5% of the health budget that is spent for prevention is absolutely insufficient. So Croatian League Against Cancer was among first to advocate that avoiding known risk factors, and tobacco being the most important one, and adopting healthier lifestyle is the most efficient and least expensive prevention method. So in order to promote 12 European codes, 4 years ago, we have launched a campaign with the name 12 Minutes of Motion that was held during European Week Against Cancer. If there wasn't for this coronavirus crisis, we would have the fourth one tomorrow. So we organized this campaign in our biggest parks in Zagreb where we would motivate people to either walk or run for 12 minutes, and for each of those 12 minutes, we would disseminate one code, which is clearly shown here, and I'm sure that David from ECL will tell you more about that. So we had also the opportunity to deliver those 12 codes during Fight and Win conferences that were organized by Mrs. MEP Šuica and Mr. Petelre throughout Croatia, and the last one was in Brussels in 2019. So we are very pleased to know that those conferences will be continued thanks to MEP Glavak, so we commend her for that work. So to conclude, every single one of us can make a big difference. So therefore, I urge you all to make that move so our children can live in a cancer-free Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Domagoj. And I hope in the next, if you could just mute your microphone.
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much. Yes. I hope that all the work that you have been doing will be very successful in the future as well, especially talking about 12 codes that we all should live by. Our next speaker is Professor Verdoyak, the president of Croatian Oncology Association. He will present the national plan for fight against cancer for the period of 2020 to 2030. Okay. And we heard from Professor Verdoyak. Thank you very much. It's now time to hear about cancer screening programs in Croatia. Please welcome Assistant Secretary of Health, Primarius Vera Katalinic-Jankovic. She's with us on the line. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Can you hear? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay.
And I can see you now. Welcome.
Now it's much better.
Yes.
So good afternoon. Yeah. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, and sorry for these technical problems at the beginning. It's my pleasure to be part of this video conference and to speak on behalf of Ministry of Health on the occasion of the European Week Against Cancer. I was asked to speak about our national screening program, so I'll begin with some statements which are all known, but it's always good to repeat it. The number of people suffering and dying from cancer is steadily increasing. The underlying reasons are complex, including increased life expectancy and the number of people living in the world, but also change in the distribution of risk factors related to the socioeconomic changes and development and access to diagnostic procedures. Cancer is a complex problem, both from the clinical and public health perspective. Our health systems are designed to take care of short-term acute infectious diseases, and preparing them for a permanent cancer epidemic is now important more than ever. According to the WHO organization, the number of people suffering and dying from cancer will increase, and the cancer will become a leading cause of death and the biggest obstacle for further prolonging human life in the 21st century. In 2018, over 43 million people were living with cancer diagnosed in the last 5 years, and over 12 million of those are living in Europe. Considering that Europe has a quota of all cancer cases, while less than 10% of the world population. It's evident that cancer is widespread among European citizens. Croatia is not exception when it comes to the burden of cancer. We are a country with mid-level incidence rates of cancer, but we are one of the highest cancer mortality in Europe. Cancer is the second most important cause of death, just behind the cardiovascular diseases. And according to the latest official data of the Croatian National Register for Cancer from 2017, there was more than 24,000 new cancer cases and almost 14,000 people died on cancer in 2018. In Croatia, we started beating cancer a long time ago. Now there are 3 national, or I would say very soon 4 national programs for early detection of cancer, coordinating by Croatian National Institute of Public Health that have been launched for breast, colon, cervix, and now national program for early detection of lung cancer is going to start very soon. We were prepared to implement them months ago or 2 months ago, but due to coronavirus, it's a little bit postponed. And all you know, early detection of cancer is the most effective measure of secondary prevention at the population level. If we manage to detect a malignant disease that has already developed early enough, the chances to survival increase significantly. The National Breast Cancer Early Detection Program started in 2006, and the program includes 54 medical institutions in which there were mammography units. The main goal was to detect breast cancer at early localized stage and to reduce mortality by 25% and to improve the patient's quality of life. And the target group were women aged 50 to 69. And we screened with high quality mammography. Until now, 5 cycles have been completed and the 6th cycle is ongoing. The coverage rate for the breast cancer screening in Croatia are similar like in EU. It's 60% of the women between age 50 and 69 examined in the last 24 months. The results. The percentage for the breast cancer detected at the localized stage, where the chances to cure the highest, increased from 45 in 2006 to 65 in 2014. In 2017, we witnessed a decline in the number of deaths from the breast cancer, and for the first time, it is not the most common malignant disease for death in women in Croatia. And soon after so the results are obviously seen. And soon after the breast cancer, we started, government started with the early detection of colon cancer. It was end of 2007. Every 2 years, the letter invites women and men between ages 50 and 74 to test invisible blood in the stool. Individuals with the positive findings are then referred to the screening colonoscopy. The first cycle started in 2008, and now there have been 4 cycles, or the last one is ongoing. The responses, we have some problems with the small response, but now time is a little bit better, it's changed, and the response rate for the, it's at different on the county and age, and it's higher in the older age group. In several counties, a significant increase in the number of responses have been achieved because of ongoing education of the citizens, as well as for the work of the community nurses in the field. The share of tested persons has also increased, and now the share estimated is 23%. The special value of the program is the high proportion of people in whom polyps are detected and removed, which is the best prevention of colon cancer. Another important shift in the level of organization is the monitoring of screening quality indicators, which enables even better quality assurance of all procedures and examinations performed within this organized screening program. So I would conclude that it's much better than it's obviously seen, but we have a lot to improve in this screening program. Additionally, in 2012, the Ministry of Health started the implementation of the National Preventive Program for early detection of the cervical cancer as an organized screening for cervical cancer using cytological testing, so-called PAPA test, on the target population of women aged 25 to 64 who are not on the opportunistic screening, with calls for testing every 3 years. The purpose of the early detection program for cervical cancer is to reduce the incidence and mortality of cervical cancer in Croatia. And the goal of the program is to improve the results of opportunistic screening, early detection of cervical cancer, and changes that can lead to cancer, reduce its incidence and mortality, and improve the quality of life of healthy women in the target population. Due to some technical problems, Croatia is currently conducting mainly opportunistic screening for cervical cancer. But on the regional level, we are preparing reorganized program, and very soon the first implementation phase will be start in Virovitica, Podravina County for women aged 20 to 65, and we are really in preparation phase, and it's when the corona passed away, we'll start with this pilot program, and then if it is, we'll use another testing, so maybe we can improve our program and share it to the other counties. And taking account the burden of the lung cancer, which is the biggest problem between men in Croatia, Croatia has developed a national program for early detection of lung cancer. Our national program will include people who are 50 to 75 years old, active smokers, or have quit smoking within 15 years prior to screening, with a minimum of 30 boxes per year, and regardless of comorbidities and other demographic or anamnestic characteristics. People who meet the BAO criteria but quit smoking for more than 15 years ago will not be included in this program. Physicians will determine inclusion of persons in the national program, and they will perform the care of the further processing. At an early stage, lung cancer is a potentially curable disease with a 5-year survival on the first very early stage between 66 and 85%. The goal of our program is to detect lung cancer in this stage, in the very early stage of disease. Low-dose CT will be used, and the recording will be conducted in 15 centers, and then currently meet quality criteria, and then conduct regularly quality control. Findings will be structured and uniform and in one program, and people will be asked to come to the hospital for further treatment. The experience with the Western countries showed that it is extremely important to have a clear strategy of how to influence the improvement on the epidemiological situation. This is achieved through adoption of national cancer plan. You have heard Professor Verdoyak from Split, and he was in charge of a national program of national strategic framework for cancer, and we do think that it will be the biggest step in fight against cancer in Croatia. We are very happy to see that the Commission, European Commission, has published a proposal for a regulation on the establishment for a program of the Union's action in the field of health, so-called EU for Health program. And it's more than, it's good to see that the cancer is one of its objectives. And we know that this document will be a financial instrument of European Commission, and it's good to have cancer inside it. We are looking forward also for Horizon mission on cancer. By this mission, by 2030, 3 million lives could be saved, living longer and better. That's the motto of this mission. And the goal of the mission is also to be aligned with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The mission outline on cancer will be revised based on the inputs of stakeholders and the scientific evidence, and of course according to the national plans of the member states, as well as Horizon Europe missions, other Horizon Europe missions. And of course, in the particular with the Europeans Beating Cancer Plan. Europe has an excellent opportunity to beat cancer, but it requires a new level of cooperation and pooling of resources to make a real difference in the lives of millions of Europeans. This requires significant investment and collaboration in research, innovation at all levels, implementation of supportive policy and legislation, as well as strong commitment from member states to break barriers across Europe. At the end, we can say that cancer rate is at the top of the European political agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was all I can say. Well, all I can say is that it's a long road, and I can only wish you luck. And hopefully, people watching and people in general, the public in general, is going to take prevention more seriously than they do right now. Assistant Secretary of Health, Primarius Vera Katalinić-Janković, thank you very much for taking the time and taking the part in our masterclass today. Before we continue with our next speaker, I just want to remind all of you again that you have the chance to take part in today's masterclass by asking questions. So if you want to know more on a certain topic, or just want to ask questions for any one of our speakers today, please do so. It's very simple. It's right in front of you in our chat section. So yes, ask questions if you have any. Let's move on. Next up is, I'm sorry, I have to say this in Croatian as well, za sve one koji nas gledaju iz Hrvatske. A koji žele postaviti neko pitanje, čak i za vas koji niste sigurni možda kako ćete to složiti na engleskom, slobodno možete postaviti na hrvatskom, pa ćemo onda mi prevesti to pitanje ako je za nekog od naših stranih panelista. Next up, Cancer Prevention Manager at Association of European Cancer Leagues. Please welcome Mr. David Ritchie. Hello, David.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, not yet see you. Hold on, let's see. Oh, there you are. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Your presentation, you have 5 to 8 minutes, so.
Okay, do I share the presentation or will we? You already have it. That's great. Thanks a lot. Okay, so thank you very much and good afternoon. Firstly, thank you to the organizers, especially to dear Neda and Domago for the kind invitation and the opportunity to present during today's webinar masterclass. On behalf of ECL, I'd like to say that we really appreciate your initiative to promote cancer prevention and the European Code Against Cancer during the European Week Against Cancer. As has been said, my name is Dave Ritchie and I'm the Cancer Prevention Manager at ECL, which is a network of 30 cancer leagues at the moment from across the wider European region. I'm happy to speak to you briefly today about the European Code Against Cancer, which is something that we think is extremely important for cancer prevention. The reason why we think it's important is that we know getting support for and implementing prevention-focused actions is very difficult. As you can see on the slide, there are some reasons for why prevention is difficult from a very nice article from around 2013. There are many issues to overcome in order to realize the changes necessary to improve health by addressing factors at both the individual and societal level. One important obstacle is the amount of information about health and well-being that individuals encounter in their daily lives. This can be overwhelming and sometimes inconsistent, especially when we take into account certain commercial interests which may conflict with public health goals. Next slide, please. One tool to help us deal with this in respect to cancer prevention is the European Code Against Cancer. The code is a simple but comprehensive set of 12 evidence-based recommendations for the general public, outlining the steps they can take to reduce their or their family's cancer risk. It's an initiative of the European Commission. The code has been developed after extensive consultation amongst leading scientists from the European Union under the expert coordination of the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC. Up to half of all deaths in Europe could be avoided if the actions of the code were put in practice through a mixture of individual behavioral change and, crucially, governmental policies and actions to create an environment that supports people to adopt the messages into their daily lives. And next slide, please. As we consider the code to be so important, we wanted. So here you have on the slide here, so there are 12 messages which cover some of the main areas, main risk factors related to cancer prevention. So we have tobacco in terms of tobacco control at an individual level, and also smoke-free policies in the home and workplace. And then the rest of the messages move out towards individual factors in diet, nutrition, physical activity, alcohol, through more towards population level actions as we end up towards vaccination and screening programs. If you want to learn more about the European Code Against Cancer and the specific 12 messages, I encourage you to visit the website. The information of the Croatian League Against Cancer provides, also our own website, cancer.eu, and the official website of the code, which can be found through the International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC. So as we considered the code to be so important and central for cancer prevention, we wanted to see what the general awareness was amongst the general population public within Europe. So we performed a couple of surveys in 2015 and 17 to get an idea of the picture of the awareness about the code. The picture was mixed with a good level of awareness, around 1 in 5 in Poland and Hungary, in Central and Eastern Europe. But there was less awareness in Western and Northern Europe, especially in the UK. And this is because these countries tend to promote messages, more specifically the code, but not the code itself as a name, as an identity. So taking this into account, we wanted to understand a bit more the situation, so to be sure that the next version, the next edition of the code itself goes in the right direction. So on the next slide, you can see what we did to go further by interviewing representatives from 28 cancer societies in Europe. These key informants were people who work day-to-day in cancer prevention, and so they're very familiar with the European Code, and they could give us a special insight into the code's use and applicability from the perspective of the promoter. The slide on your screen shows some insights into how the code's been promoted by various leagues. So many leagues have used public dissemination materials through events, through infographics, leaflets, etc. A lot of also have branded campaigns to promote the code itself, and dedicated some specific interventions built around the code. This is a very good example in the Republic of Ireland, where people who are long-term unemployed are on a back-to-work program that also encourages positive health and mental well-being, which is based and structured around 12 modules, one per 12 messages of the European Code Against Cancer. So there's lots of different activities and ways in which the code has been applied, but typically it's based upon classical dissemination routes to promote the messages individually and as a whole from this version of the European Code. The informants also give us some insight into the strengths and weaknesses of the current edition of the code. Overall, the main strengths are its comprehensiveness. It's a robust message, evidence-based led set of messages which really are written in a very clear, accessible way that don't require specialist knowledge or understanding. It has an endorsement of experts, particularly from the IARC and the WHO, and has a European dimension. So these are many of the positive aspects of the code. Some of the weaknesses were identified by the promoters, where as it's targeted towards a general audience, there's a lack of tailoring to specific groups. In particular, one area that we'll pick up on, I think, in the future is tailoring this towards decision makers and policy makers. So going beyond the statement of the evidence, beyond what people can do to improve their health and well-being, reduce their cancer risk, but to give policymakers, decision makers, precise guidance, tools, instructions of how to then translate this into actions that help people in their lives. And this was picked up in the final slide here from the evaluation, when we asked crucially, what's the impact beyond just the awareness, the knowledge, understanding of the messages? What's been the impact at a societal level? And we were pleased to see that half of the representatives reported that the code itself has had a positive impact in developing population level activities and prevention focused measures. particularly in respect of vaccination and crucially in cancer screening programs. So overall, out of the 28 societies we interviewed, 25 were using the code, let's say, on a day-to-day basis, systematized within their health promotion, health education work. Whilst there's heterogeneity amongst the application in practice, there was a pretty much unanimous agreement that the code is the reference point for cancer prevention and has had a considerable positive impact over time. On the part of ourselves at ECL, as a secretariat, a key method we use to transmit the messages of the European Code Against Cancer is via the Youth Ambassadors program. And I'm delighted that we have one of our newest recruits, Ivan, also joining us on the Masterclass today. The Youth Ambassadors program is an excellent way for us as a society to help support and train the next generation of prevention advocates and also to disseminate the code itself. So as you see on the next couple of slides, we have a considerable geographic scope covering 38 countries in the wider European region. And on the following slide, you'll see also the resulting actions that have been done. So in last year alone, there was 205 actions carried out by the 66 members as there was at the time from the program. The next slide will show you some specific activities that were done as a collaborative, as a group during World Cancer Day, during EWAC, and then also at individual levels, so the ambassadors themselves acting as representatives in their countries and the regions at university. And I'd like to finish with one fantastic example, which some of you has already flagged up, which is the 12 minutes, the ICANN Running Against Cancer, the 12 minutes, 12 messages against cancer. First organized in 2017 by one of our original ambassadors, Helena Vukovic, in collaboration with our friends at the Croatian League. So we're very happy with that action, the continuation of that, and we look forward to many more actions with you all in the future. So thank you very much, and Havala.
Rich, he's been with us from the first second that we started this masterclass today. Hopefully you're going to stay till the end. And next up, a Croatian member of the European Parliament, Sunčana Glavak from the EPP, and she will talk about the initiatives in the EU Parliament. Sunčana, can you hear us? Hello? Sunčana? I can see that you're online, but I can see you, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, yes.
No, I'm sorry, I have a little bit problem. So I'm here now.
We can hear you and we can see you. It's lovely to have you with us. So the next 5 minutes are yours. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Antonia. Hello, everybody. I'm more than glad that in these challenging times we managed to organize the Digital Policy Masterclass on the occasion of the Croatian presidency of the EU Council and European Week Against Cancer. And I'm certain that this discussion will be very beneficial for us and for the public in general. I would like to tackle several key topics regarding cancer, both in EU and in Croatia. Fight and Win conference, which I will be organizing, is a strong platform which connects people regarding the topic of fighting cancer. The conference concept is to cooperate with top Croatian medical experts in the field of oncology, as well as various cancer association and cancer patients, bringing the talk about cancer to all parts of Croatia. The main goal is to promote the importance of cancer prevention and health in general, and also giving those who have beat cancer a platform to share their experience so that the stigma surrounding cancer is decreased. 3 Fight and Win conferences were planned before the summer of 2020, and the next conference was supposed to be held in Slavonski Brod here in Croatia in March, but was unfortunately postponed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I hope that we will soon continue with this conference series, especially because every Fight and Win conference had a very positive feedback, both from the guest speakers and the public. EPP Group is fighting cancer on the EU level with its EU Can Beat Cancer campaign. The campaign was started with the goal of shifting the very negative current trend. We witnesses 1 in 4 all of deaths in Europe is caused by cancer. I think you know that well. EPP is urging the member states to join forces and fight cancer by stepping up the cooperation in the field of research, prevention, early detection, and patient support. Its 10-step plan is recovering every important section in fighting cancer, from encouraging prevention and early detection to ensuring the same quality care across Europe. One of the most important, if not the most important factor is treating cancer successfully, its prevention and early detection. With effective prevention measures, we could avoid around 40% of all EU cancer cases. EPP Group wants to establish coherent European cancer prevention and early detection strategy. With this measure, we aim to encourage cooperation between research centers across Europe in prevention and to raise points on risk factors. The campaign aims to give cancer research a new boost in increasing the EU research budget by 80 to 120 billion euros in the next 7 years. I think you know that. We want to use the power of big data by linking all the research information through a European digital cancer center, which will enable future researchers to achieve breakthrough progress in less time. EPP Group believes that the same quality patient care must be available across Europe, and the proposal to ensure that is the introduction of the European Quality Accreditation for Cancer Centers. That would ensure the setting of the core standards for measuring the quality of cancer services. The bottom line of all these proposals is keeping the fight against cancer a top priority in the EU, and for the reason the EPP Group is proposing the establishment of a special committee on cancer in the European Parliament. Cancer is, as you know, one of the main the EU Commission priority as well. Being a woman map, I must take a minute to mention the many cases of female-specific cancers, such as breast cancer, which is a quarter of all female cancers cases in Croatia, and cervical cancers, which make 9% of the total number of female cancer cases in Croatia. The last available data shows that every year there is over 11,000 women that are diagnosed with cancer, and just these 2 cancer types alone makes for almost 4,000 cancer cases in Croatian women every year. Croatia currently has some of the most advanced technology for fighting cancer and the top quality medical experts. The next steps is the implementation of the national plan against cancer that will be approved as soon as possible. The data for the last couple of years shows a slow decrease in mortality rate for breast cancer, which I believe is the result of the various prevention programs Croatia introduced. This shows that even the basic mammography checkup makes a huge difference in lowering the mortality rate. It is evident that we have to continue with the programs like that in the future if we want the mortality rate to continually decrease. Unfortunately, the incidence of the prostate cancer is increasing every year, and the last data also shows the increase in mortality rate for this type of cancer, which is very warning. This tells me that we should do more for men and women, of course, when we're talking about the future prevention campaign for male-specific cancers. I cannot stress enough the importance of screening and making effort to increase the awareness for this and all the most dangerous types of cancer. This data shows that prevention and awareness campaigns are effective. We have to constantly remind people about personal responsibility and that if the cancer can be diagnosed early enough, there is a good chance that it can also be successfully treated. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Croatian member of the European Parliament, Sunčana Glavak. All I can do is wish you good luck and continue to do what you have been doing. And of course, prevention and early detection, I think that all of us can do a lot more for ourselves and for this society that we live in general. Thank you very much, Sunčana Glavak. Well, as Sunčana said, all the things that we are doing as a country and as European Union, we all should be able to get the same quality of medical care no matter where we live. And doesn't that sound beautiful? And that is exactly what our next speaker is focused on. Please welcome Dr. Tomislav Sokol, another Croatian member of the European Parliament. Let's see if he can hear us. Oh, yes, there you are. You were muted, so yes.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
It's so good to have you. Take it away. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Antonia, very much. I would like to thank the organizers for making this webinar happen. I think it's very important to have these kinds of events to speak about the importance of cancer, fighting cancer, and of course now with all the focus being on the COVID-19 pandemic, I think we should also keep in mind that cancer is still the second most prevalent cause of death in Croatia, and definitely that it has to also be still remain a priority, not to be put on the back burner because of the COVID-19. So what I wanted to discuss first in terms of access to healthcare, what concrete steps can the EU do about it? So what can the EU concretely do to fight cancer and to make access to healthcare, to cancer treatment possible equally in all the parts of the EU? And of course, the first problem with that is that healthcare policy in general is not primarily European Union competence, but the member states' competence. According to Article 168 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, which is the highest source of EU law, primary competence for financing and organizing healthcare systems is on the members. And that is the reason why, up until now, unfortunately, healthcare and fighting cancer was not really very high on the list of priorities of the EU. We have to be honest about this. This political climate has changed. EPP was the first political group to start talking about this during the electoral campaign in 2019, and the result of all this is the procedure of adopting the cancer plan, which the Commission should adopt by the end of the year. The public consultation has just finished about this EU fighting cancer plan, and of course we in the Parliament have also done a lot in terms of creating an intergroup on the measures against cancer, where I was one of the initiators, and the special committee on cancer, which is also in the making. So we did a lot to put fight for healthcare in general, but also fight cancer very high on the political agenda. So what can the EU do to make access to healthcare treatment, to cancer treatment, similar in all parts of the EU? So there are two sets of instruments. There are the regulatory instruments, so the legislation that we can adopt, that we have still the power to adopt on the European level, even though the primary competence is on the member states. Still, the EU has some competences to regulate some parts of healthcare treatment. And then there are the financial instruments. Some of them have already been mentioned. About the regulatory instruments, so one thing that is very important is the health technology assessment. So the health technology assessment regulation, which was supported by the European Parliament, but it's now with the Council, and I hope the Council will also adopt it soon, is the regulation which determines the position on how to assess medical technology in terms of safety, which are to be put on the market. So we have the European Medicines Agency, which evaluates drugs, medicines on the European level, and now the idea is for health technology assessment to have one health technology assessment on the EU level, which will assess the clinical value of new treatments, which should be also cancer treatments, which should be put on the market. Of course, this HTA regulation unfortunately doesn't go very far. One thing that it does not have, and that's the cost effectiveness analysis, which Professor Verdoyak mentioned. I think cost effectiveness analysis is something very important, because cost effectiveness analysis essentially means how much money is feasible to invest in a certain drug, and because, for instance, if a certain drug, medicine or treatment costs 500,000 euros and only gives you 1 or 2 months of extra quality of life, etc., then the question is these resources can be invested elsewhere. So regulating this on the EU level, so making this kind of common procedure of introducing new health technologies, new treatments into the system, would definitely improve the quality of treatment for cancer patients in the EU. But unfortunately, we still don't have this kind of work. Another possibility that we have that was already introduced for COVID-19 is joint procurement of medicines, of medical equipment, etc. Because, for instance, when small member states, like Croatia, for instance, negotiate with big pharmaceutical companies, of course, they're not able to get a good deal in terms of pricing of medicines, etc. But if we have a common procurement, common buying of medicines, common setting of prices on the EU level, then, of course, we can reduce the prices of these kinds of medicines, and the most expensive medicines are for rare diseases and cancer. So this is also definitely one of the initiatives that I have been working on, and I'm glad that also it's been partly taken on board by the European Commission in this recovery program, which was introduced 2 days ago by the Commission President for November. So definitely, I think EU instruments can be used to reduce the prices of medicines in the EU, and this is something that I'm also working on the EU level. Of course, apart from HTA and joint procurement, there is the cross-border healthcare directive, and which was adopted in 2011, which makes it possible for patients from one member state to travel abroad to obtain healthcare paid by that patient's health insurance. Unfortunately, not a lot of patients know the possibilities of accessing healthcare abroad. And what I have proposed, along with other MEPs to the European Commission, is to introduce a special cross-border healthcare fund, which will help for patients, not they having to pay for the treatment by themselves, but cover part of their treatment costs, especially for cancer. But also, I think this money could be used also for financing health centers of excellence on EU levels, so certain hospitals which will focus and specialize for certain types of diseases, certain types of cancer, etc. And then they would cover not just one member state, but also neighboring member states, so that you don't have to develop healthcare resources for each type of cancer in each individual member state. This would be one way of making use of resources much more efficient and streamlining it where it's most needed. So definitely cross-border healthcare is something that we have to invest a lot into. But which brings me to the financial instruments. So in terms of financial instruments, so Horizon, the research program was already mentioned. What is important is this research program for the next 7 years, because now we are making the budget for the next 7 years, and Horizon is part of that. Fighting cancer will become one of 5 top priorities. We were able to politically achieve that research into healthcare treatments, especially to cancer, will be one of the 5 priorities of the next Horizon, which means that a lot of money will be invested into healthcare research, into cancer treatment research. I think that's also one of the big accomplishments of all of us in the EPP. That's something that I've been also working. Another instrument that can be also used to finance cancer treatment prevention infrastructure is the cohesion policy, the so-called EU funds. And this is one of the most important tools, because cohesion policy, one of the the main objective of cohesion policy is to make those who are less developed more similar to those who are more developed, to achieve this so-called convergence between different parts of the EU. But unfortunately, up until now, financing of healthcare treatment and cancer treatment was not centralized. It was kind of divided into different parts of cohesion policy, part of the social fund, partly the regional development fund, etc., etc. So it was kind of dispersed all around, which means that you couldn't really focus on it. This wasn't a priority, and you couldn't kind of organize in a systematic and coherent way financing of access to healthcare infrastructure, etc. But now this is changing. Healthcare will become definitely one of the focuses of the cohesion policy, and I'm glad that for the first time in the new proposal by the Commission, we have a self-standing healthcare program which will be devoted only for healthcare, which will cost 9.4 billion euros. So we have a new self-standing healthcare program, more than 9 billion euros. Up until now, we had a healthcare program which was kind of a sub-program, part of the European Social Fund, that was really priority, and it was only worth 450 million euros. So it means that the new healthcare program in the new 7-year budget will be 20 times bigger than it was before. And of course, the final instrument that the EU has is the European semester. So the European semester, making recommendations on how to organize national economic policies, etc., was up until 2 or 3 years ago focused on austerity, spending cuts, or reducing public debt, and things like that. But now this is changing, and for the first time in the last couple of years, health outcomes. So, for instance, the reducing mortality of cancer patients, prolonging the longevity of life, etc., is now becoming also one of the objectives of this European semester. Which means that the focus of the European Union is shifting from the economic regulation, reducing public debt, deficits, etc., more towards the health outcomes, objectives of the healthcare systems, and how can we improve access to healthcare. Of course, the problem is that still big differences exist, and if you look at the differences in terms of healthcare outcomes, like prevalence of and mortality from cancer and things like that, those countries which have the least amount of resources to invest into healthcare have the worst health outcomes, like Romania, most of the eastern part of it. I think Romania is one of the worst, but Romania, Bulgaria, etc., etc. So that these differences still exist, and the EU has used all of these resources that it has on its disposal to make this difference, to reduce this difference. I think that's the crucial thing, and and if the EU manages that, then we will be able to convince that the EU actually has a purpose, and so that solidarity is one of the founding principles, founding pillars of the EU. So to wrap up, healthcare policy fighting cancer is still a national priority, but the EU can do a lot. It can do much more than it has done before. We in the Parliament have been doing a lot in raising awareness and raising possibilities on what the EU can do on this level. A lot of it has been picked up by the European Commission, and I have to say I'm also glad that the first official visit of the new Commissioner for Healthcare, Stella Kyriakides, to the European Parliament after she was elected was to a conference that I've organized. Some of the panelists at this conference are actually here now, which means again that healthcare is becoming a priority also of the European Commission. It's very important to the Parliament. We have been very successful in raising awareness on this topic. We also organized lots of events in the Parliament. Me myself organized around 10 conferences in the European Parliament on these topics, and I think that the future EU policy, healthcare policy, will be much stronger, much more efficient, and much more streamlined in achieving the objectives that we all need, and that's of course fighting cancer. Thanks.
I have been doing a lot of these online master classes and conferences, and your speech was one of the most energetic, you speak very fast, and it's very, very interesting. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for this. I think that you will need the energy to do what you do when it comes to healthcare in terms of the European Union. Thank you very much. It was docent Tomislav Sokol, Croatian member of the European Parliament. Thank you. We all heard many times today that prevention is key, and we always need to find new ways to influence young people. how it can be done, we will hear from Ivan Vidic, Croatian Youth Ambassador at Association of European Cancer Leagues. Ivan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well, Antonia. Thank you very much for the introduction, and I would like to thank the previous speakers, Mr. Solko and Sunčana. I have to say that at one of these events, the fight against cancer was brought to my attention. It was in Zagreb. The commission then was also very focused on this. Madam Šuica also helped organize the conference, so I was there in the audience, and here I am today as a youth ambassador against cancer. So let me start by saying that regardless of the fact that I represent a younger generation, we are following the policies that are focused on this issue. And indeed, when you look at the data, we can really see that Europe is really affected by the widespread of cancer. So in this sense, we also want to give certain support to our overall response to this issue. As we saw in the data of the previous speakers, there is divergence in Europe. We see that the mortality rate in Croatia is higher than in certain member states. And as the younger generation, we expect a lot from both the national and European level. MP Sokol mentioned correctly that this is a national competence. But I think that through the national and EU response, there's really much we can do to prevent and to save a lot of lives. I would like to say that the initiatives on, as I said, on the European level are, I think, well targeted. So I would like to mention just a few. So the master plan, the prevention strategy, and the formation of national centers and databases on cancer. So especially these digital centers are, I think, something that really has a lot of perspective because the technology really evolved rapidly. And I think that mechanisms also such as artificial intelligence can really help prevention. Can really save us costs and can, at least to some extent, provide the same service throughout the EU. I would like to focus on one particular piece of data that I found in my preparations, let's say, for this speech today, that people in Eastern Europe have a 13% lower chance of recovery. This is something that is, of course, very worrying, and I would really like to, support all the MPs who are working to curb this problem. But perhaps to get to the national level, when it comes to Croatia, I'm looking forward to the implementation of the national program for the fight against cancer. I really believe there is much we can do. But as MP Sokol said, I think that the European funds that are available to us can really support both the infrastructure and the projects that we can develop. And this is not specifically in healthcare. So through, for example, the European Social Fund, we can really focus on bringing young people into sports or providing the right education chances for the right nutrition and so forth. So I really believe that we have now all the tools to have a quality long-term approach and provide a real chance for young people to avoid this very unhappy situation of having cancer. Also, I would like to focus on the education system, and I believe that there is much progress to be done here. I believe that young people really need more information on how they can prevent cancer from a very early age. And I would like to say that perhaps one of the most important messages here today is that prevention is really cost effective. Everyone can do it. And as we heard today from the 12 codes on cancer, we can start today immediately. So everyone can do sports, everyone can stop smoking, but I really believe that if we promote these lifestyles from an early age, people will avoid these unhealthy habits. And I would also especially focus on smoking perhaps, because I would like to just get some data to you. So for example, research showed that among 15-year-olds, practically every fourth 15-year-old in Croatia smoked on a regular basis. 14% of Croatian children are obese. And also data shows that 60% of people do not engage in at least a minimum of physical activity 2.5 hours per week. I think we can really do much more on this. And as youth ambassador, I will really do my best to promote the code, because I think that Croatia has this perception of a sporty nation. We've seen that from the last slide of Professor Verdoyak. So I think this is one of the ways to go. But also, I have to say from a personal note that when you're young, you really don't consider you'll go for that situation, either yourself or for your relatives or family. Unfortunately, I did have a situation like that in the family. And something that I would really like to focus on is the patient approach. So this is something that we should really keep in mind when talking about our policies, because it really is a stressful period, and also the post-treatment phase is very important. I think young people in particular need a lot of psychological support. Also, as I think MP Sunchana said, to go through this, to go through the recovery, and also we need to keep in mind the carers who take care of their family members. It's also not easy for them to plan work, to balance their regular lives. And also perhaps one point that I would like to raise is the issue of workplace. There is an initiative at EU level directed on cancerogen and mutagen exposures at work. Sorry, it's a bit of a tongue breaker, but I think you got the point. The workplace is also very important, and in light of the COVID situation that showed how much we need to focus on the safety at workplace, I think that the fourth package of this directive, which will, I guess, come in one of the next presidencies, is also very important, because the workplace is also somewhere where we spend a really big amount of our time, and this is also something that we should focus on in our policies, and we should bring the fourth package as soon as possible. But as regards the youth, I would also like to thank everyone for supporting me as the youth ambassador. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. I would also like to thank the audience for being with us today. There's so much interesting things you can hear here today. But again, I would like to stress the issue of the 12 codes. Everyone can do it. You can start right now. Quit smoking, start doing sports, focus on your nutrition. And yes, we're a small country and we can do big things. And I hope that we will do a lot on the implementation of the code. So thank you very much for the invitation. Antonia, back to you.
Thank you very much, Ivan. Very positive. And yes, hopefully, well, myself, I'm going to implement one of those crucial steps. I'm going to walk home after this. Unless it rains, then I'm going to take the car, but I'm going to figure it out. Thank you very much, Ivan Vidic, Croatian Youth Ambassador at Association of European Cancer Leagues. It is time for our last presentation today. To wrap this all up, please welcome Dr. Vendi Yared, Director of the Association of European Cancer Leagues.
Great. Thank you very much, Antonia. And I just want to thank our colleagues at the Croatian League Against Cancer for organizing this very important event during the European Week Against Cancer. And I just feel really privileged to see here Mrs. Katalinic again, as well as Mr. Soko and Mrs. Klavek from the MEPs Against Cancer group. You guys have been doing amazing work supporting the cancer control at the EU level. And of course, very good to see our youth ambassador, Ivan. Thank you for that. So just very quickly about the European Cancer Leagues, because not all of you may realize who we are, what we do. We were founded in 1980 and we're based in Brussels. And as you heard already from Dr. Eluga, cancer societies are important charities. They're operating across the whole cancer journey, from prevention to research to access to treatment and patient support. And they are the main resource for the public for cancer control information and services. So during this COVID period, all the cancer leagues have been affected in terms of fundraising, in terms of services, but they still plug on. Now, as the Secretariat, we provide a platform for our members, but also for other stakeholders to collaborate with their international peers in the areas of cancer prevention, tobacco control. So the entire cancer journey, just like what our cancer leagues do. Our vision is for a Europe free of cancer, and our funding mainly comes from the European Commission and membership fees. Next slide, please. So I just want to talk about cancer prevention, going from the past to the present to the future. So in order to, because I think we need to kind of revisit the past sometimes to see how we can learn from our mistakes and also what worked in the past so that we can do better during the present and in the future. So the Europe Against Cancer program, cancer was first recognized as a priority 35 years ago. So I think a lot of you, audience, probably were still in diapers or not even born yet. And that was when the EU initiated the Europe Against Cancer program. And at that time, it had 2 action plans. So for the first 2 years, it focused on smoking, nutrition, carcinogenic agents, cancer screening, cancer treatment. And then in 1990, it started European Cancer Week. And the second action plan, which was focused on cancer prevention, including screening, health information, education, training of health professionals, research on cancer. And I should emphasize that during that last Year Against Cancer program, all the cancer societies were instrumental. Now, cancer prevention. So then let's fast forward 15 years, yeah? So when the last Europe Against Cancer program ended in 1995, no attention was given to cancer again, actually until the Slovenian EU presidency during the first half of 2008, when cancer was one of the presidency's main priorities. So we have them to really thank for, just kind of reviving everything, the importance of cancer control. Because what happened was after that launch, there was a launch in 2009 of the European Partnership for Action Against Cancer. And then the European Commission and the European Parliament decided that we should have a joint action, a first joint action on cancer control, and that was called by the same name, European Partnership for Action Against Cancer, and that ran from 2011 to 2014. And I should note that it was there that we revived the European Week Against Cancer. So European Week Against Cancer is an initiative that was started by ECL, but it was co-funded by the European Commission to make sure that all the European countries have some kind of a platform to make sure that it's given new visibility and new awareness during the last 7 days of May. So this was then followed by another joint action, the cancer control, and that ran from 2014 and 2017. Next slide, please. So this brings us to the present, yeah? Now, you already heard my colleague David Ritchie talk about the European Code Against Cancer. So that has been with us for more than 3 decades, and it was last updated in 2014. We do see there's an increasing evidence for cancer prevention, but not only for cancer prevention, but also for other non-communicable diseases, because as we all know, we all share similar risk factors. So after the last 2 joint actions that I mentioned, it was decided that cancer should not just be dropped, but it should continue to be a priority, and that's where we are now. We're currently in the 3rd joint action, Innovative Partnership for Action Against Cancer. And one main aim for this is to make sure that we provide a roadmap for member states to address cancer control. I should also make a note, I should also point out that joint actions or actions being led by member states. So all the work packages are being led by a member state and involving partners, NGOs, academia. So here we've been involved in all the 3 joint actions, including the current one, and always in prevention. Next slide, please. So now cancer, as what it's already been mentioned by previous speakers, is a top EU health priority. Especially, we're very lucky to have Ursula von der Leyen, who is the first medical doctor to be the president of the European Commission. She has been personally touched by cancer in her family as well. And then in addition, we have our Commissioner for Health, Stella Kyriakides, who is a breast cancer survivor and a longtime patient advocate. So we have these 2 very active advocates for the area of cancer. So what came after that was, what came before that was, during that was the mission letter to the Commissioner for Beating Cancer Plan that was already mentioned by our MEPs, which looked at, and then also the access to medicine, vaccination hesitancy, AMR. So we have all these different areas in the area of health. So cancer has been on the agenda since 1985, and now it's a top priority for 2019-24. In the area of research innovation, Mission on Cancer, and Europe's Beating Cancer Plan. I'll go a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. So this was the letter that our Commissioner for Health, Kyriakides, got from von der Leyen, where she said, I want you to put forward Europe's Beating Cancer Plan to support member states to improve cancer prevention and care. So this is where we are. And she's true to her word. She is actually putting now forward a Europe's Beating Cancer Plan. Next slide, please. That was launched on World Cancer Day in February of this year. And so there was an EU-wide public consultation on Europe's Beating Cancer Plan. And it was just announced by the European Commission that when they had consultations for the roadmap for the Beating Cancer Plan, can you believe that more than 50% of responses were around the area of prevention? So prevention is really getting heard out there, and it's more, and the general public, but all the entities, all the partners, all the NGOs recognize that we need to do more in the area of prevention, not only for cancer, but also NCDs. Next slide, please. So what's in the future? Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think we have an idea of that it's going to continue as a priority. So we already mentioned there's the EU Beating Cancer Plan. There's been the consultation. The idea is to have it launched in the last quarter of this year. We have the EU for Health program that has already also been mentioned previously. Very important program. I'll go more into that in the next slide. For the European Code Against Cancer, continuous updates. Sorry, can you go back to one slide, please? And then also prevention. Ivan has already mentioned the importance of artificial intelligence, digital tools, and e-health, because definitely we're going to see a lot more advances there for the area of cancer control. And then we have to take into account that we will probably have more in the future, COVID-like or even not COVID-like disruptions. So what is the impact on cancer control there? We have to be prepared for that. Next slide, please. So I just want to end on a positive note, and this was already mentioned by our previous speakers, especially Dr. Soko, this new standalone EU for Health program, specifically the announcement on Wednesday, post these specific actions on cancers to support member states and NGOs in the promotion and implementation of the recommendation of the European Code Against Cancer. So we're very happy to see that, because definitely primary and secondary prevention is going to be given more of a focus to support prevention programs on the main cancer risk factors, and also to support secondary prevention of cancer, early detection, diagnosis through screening, and you can see these other areas. And then another important one is to support the implementation of the unit's tobacco control policy and legislation. And we should not forget that tobacco control is very, very important, because it is the #1 risk factor for cancer that is preventable. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. These are our handles. This is the European Week Against Cancer, so please retweet. Please see what we're doing during the European Week Against Cancer, because we would love to have you disseminate the information, and we would love to have your support. And thanks again, and I look forward to additional activities during the Croatian presidency. Back to you, Antonia.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vendi, Yared, the Director of the Association of European Cancer Leagues. Thank you very much. It was very interesting. And with this, we came to an end of this year's campaign as part of European Week Against Cancer. Thanks to all of our participants all around Europe, presenters, and all of you, of course, watching us from your homes and your offices. Hope to see you again next year. And remember, prevention is our key to success. We can be cancer-free. So that's something that I'm going to leave you with. Have a great day, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye. Stay safe.
Bye.